and Ebert review James Caan and Angelica Houston in Gardens of Stone, Francis Coppola's drama about Americans at home coping with the Vietnam War. A group of teenagers are faced with a murder in their midst in River's Edge. And the Criterion Collection showcases new versions of classic movies on Laserdisc home video. It's all coming up next on Siskel and Ebert and the Movies.
Sergeants never get a Louis that can lead. You'll make a lucky guy an easy gig there. Born to it, kid. Born to be.
Well, then here's to us. Those like us.
Damn, you left.
James Caan toasts a young lieutenant going off to Vietnam in Francis Coppola's Gardens of Stone. It's been 8 years since Francis Coppola's Apocalypse Now, and Gardens of Stone, his latest Vietnam film, is one of the new movies we'll be reviewing this week. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first film is Gardens of Stone, which tells a story about soldiers who were stationed in America during the Vietnam War, an elite unit named the Old Guard, which was assigned to Arlington National Cemetery and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And this group found itself more and more being assigned to burial details as the war in Vietnam grew deadlier. The movie stars James Caan as an Army professional who hates being assigned behind the line, and D.B. Sweeney as a young recruit whose dad was a war hero.
I know this unit and they print up these little cards. They say, killing is our business, and business is good. Well, here, burying is our business. Our business is better. Don't you be in such a hurry to get yourself starched.
The kid is a good soldier, but he's also a wise guy.
You take biology in school, soldier?
Yes, Sergeant Major.
How do worms copulate?
They don't, Sergeant Major. They use asexual reproduction.
Interesting concept. Tell me, Willow, any idea who first came up with that notion? Reproducing without sex?
Your wife, Sergeant Major?
That's James Earl Jones as the commanding officer, and one night he and Caan have a heart-to-heart talk with the kid about Vietnam.
I don't really give a rat's ass about Vietnam. Matter of fact, I don't give a wombat's ass about who's running Vietnam. As a matter of fact, to be very honest with you, I really don't care about who's running the U.S. of.
Don't you care about anything?
Oh, yeah, I care about the United States Army. That's my family. The only one I got. And I don't like it when it's in trouble.
And then Sweeney gets his wish and goes off to Vietnam, where his letters home begin to read a lot like Charlie Sheen's letters from the front in Platoon. But unfortunately, this movie doesn't have the focus or the power of Platoon, and as it continued, it became more and more of a disappointment to me. Gardens of Stone was directed by Francis Coppola, whose Apocalypse Now is still, I think, the best movie ever made about the war in Vietnam, but this time, his passion and conviction seem buried beneath a lot of shapeless melodrama. His message seems to be there were a lot of nice, sensitive, complicated people who were caught up in that war, and some of them got killed, and the rest of them felt bad about it. Well, we already knew that.
You know, it's very tough right now for a film about Vietnam to come out because Platoon is so strong in our minds that I had the same reaction in terms of the letters. When the kid starts reading the letters, I said, this writing is not as good as the writing in Platoon.
I think the screenplay is the problem area. The writing is good in the sense of really convincing dialogue and really sharply seen and lovingly seen characters, but the structure isn't there. This movie doesn't really begin anywhere. It doesn't have a middle. It doesn't have a real ending. It gives away what ending it has. And when we walk out of the theater, we feel that we weren't really taken anywhere. We observed a lot of people for a while, got to know them, got to like them, and then the movie was over.
Okay, but to me, the strength of Gardens of Stone is contained not in any one of the many characters or even the screenplay, as you point out, but simply in one character, and that is the one played by James Caan, the one that he puts on the screen. This is his comeback performance after being away from the movies for 4 years, and Caan speaks beautifully about the futility of war, I think, in this film, simply with his fleshy, exhausted face. He's a beaten man in this movie, as we can see in this scene, where he talks with his reporter friend, Angelica Houston, about his desire to help protect young recruits from certain slaughter by going to Fort Benning, Georgia to train them.
I just can't watch one more of those boys. I guess it's just weakness.
It's not weakness, Clell.
Sam, my business is a family business. If the building is burning and you can't carry out all your children, you damn well do what you can and you cry about it later.
Roger, this is not a perfect film. I think you found a lot of the problems. In fact, some of the relationships, in fact, even the central relationship between Con and the kid is not the most exciting thing I've seen. But the whole notion, I think, of what Coppola was trying to do here was show the effect of the war on the people at home who weren't fighting, and I think that he does that simply with the Con character. I will forget most everything in this movie, except I will not forget James Caan's face.
I think there's somebody else you're forgetting, and that's Angelica Houston, because the two of them go together in this movie. And this relationship, the Angelica Houston-James Caan relationship, is one of the most tender and most moving adult love stories I've seen in the movies for a long time. But once again, it suffers from the fact that the movie doesn't have a focus. Is it about them? Is it about Con and the kid? Is it about the kid and his girlfriend? Is it about James Earl Jones and all of them? We never know. I know what Coppola wanted to do here. What he wanted to do was tell a story of the war at home, of the soldiers who were not anti-war, but they were anti-Vietnam War. And he just got so many things going on here that there's no clear thread to pull us from the beginning of this movie through to the end.
Okay, I recommend the film on the basis of Con, and I think the relationship that you mentioned, I almost felt with the kid, they were almost doing sort of a Top Gun in terms of Vietnam with the young kid, and I think it gets shimmied out.
Boy, it was a close call for me, but I cannot recommend it because at the end I was just left feeling dissatisfied, basically, unfulfilled by all of the good stuff that was there and that wasn't realized. Coming up next, a high school story about how some teenagers cover up the murder of one of their friends.
Couch out of what? What's by the river and what are you guys talking about?
Our next film is called River's Edge, and it's certain to be controversial. It's a story of a bunch of teenagers who find one of their classmates, a young woman, strangled to death naked on a riverbank. Now, a lot of kids find out about the murder, and they know it was committed by one of their friends. At a video game parlor, the ringleader of a group of outsiders at the school tries to convince the other kids in the group to say nothing, absolutely nothing, about the murder.
That's it? He murders Jamie and we just ignore it?
He had his reasons. He was shooting her mouth off about his mom.
His mother's dead.
Yeah. See?
He's got a couple loose springs when it comes to dealing with his dead mother.
But he comes to school bragging. It's like he wants to get caught.
Well, he's not going to get caught because no one's going to tell. Isn't that right, Tony?
And I would not. That's Crispin Glover as the ringleader. Glover takes the pathetic young killer, played by Daniel Roebuck, to hide out with the town eccentric, played by Dennis Hopper.
Look, Beck, John's in trouble. He needs your help.
Trouble, what did you do?
Nothing, Beck.
I killed Jamie.
Damn it, John! You didn't exactly kill her. It was an accident.
Oh, I killed a girl once. It was no accident. Put the gun right to the back of her head, blew her brains right out the front. I was in love. I strangled mine. Did you love her? She was okay.
River's Edge is very violent and shocking in its seemingly casual treatment of a young woman's murder. You could see that certainly in that scene, but that's the whole point of the film, because it portrays a bunch of burned-out kids who have become so disinterested in life, in their own lives, and the lives of others, that to them, a dead body might as well be an uprooted log. This portrait is so deadpan that River's Edge might come across to some people as offensive, but to me, because it's so dead on and just presented as a fact, River's Edge, to me, is one of the most frightening films I've seen in a long time.
I thought it was frightening. I also thought it was a very great film.
Yes.
Of course, this is based upon a true story of some teenagers who did cover up for a long time a dead body that many of them went out to visit and look at for days before the police found out about it. And something that might be added, of course, is that all these kids are drug abusers and little teenage alcoholics. One of the most frightening characters in the whole movie is a little 12-and-a-half, 13-year-old who will do almost anything to get a six-pack of beer. And, of course, it shows the homes of these kids. Where the mother, one of the mother's big problems is whether or not her son is stealing her marijuana.
Yes.
And so that they're not getting any kind of a home life, and then they go out into the streets where their minds are totally burned out by drugs and alcohol, and they can't feel anything at all. It's really a horrifying portrait.
Yeah, I saw this and I said, this is not overdone.
No.
Something about the way it was played, I'm saying this is taking place at various places in the country, and it scared me. It really scared me. It's a fine film.
Well, it goes on my list with movies like In Cold Blood and some of the other movies that really try to get into the actual pathology of people who kill and why they do it and why they don't feel...
Or tolerate
it, yes. Coming up next, a very special video segment this week about a revolutionary new way of watching videos at home, even ones you think you might know pretty well, like King Kong. And now it's time for the weekly video segment of our show, an expanded double section this week because we have something really special. Some extraordinary new versions of classic movies now available on laser disc. But maybe I better explain a little bit first. Most people, of course, watch video movies on cassette tapes on their VCRs. But with the rise of compact discs in the last few years, there's also been a steadily growing market for laser discs, which use the same technology to play both video and audio. Laser video is about 60% better than most of the cassette tapes you'll see, and the sound, of course, is a whole lot better. You want to hold that up for the folks at home?
Oh, thanks. Here I am. Gene, the co-host, Wonder Dog. Here's the laser disc. Take a look at it. It glistens and it glows, and it's impermeable.
Next week, we're going to try you out on the Vegematic.
Okay.
In addition to the quality of laser discs, there's also the versatility. The same disc can carry two completely separate soundtracks underneath the picture, which for stereo pictures makes true stereo with Dolby surround sound possible in your living room. But it also leads to the subject of this week's video segment, which is the Criterion Collection, a series of laser discs of mono movies that were made in the good old days. It's made especially for movie buffs with a lot of extra features. And this, of course, is King Kong. Now, since it has two sound channels on it, the left-hand channel on your stereo equipment gives you the original monophonic sound of this movie when it was first released. Then all you have to do is push a button on your remote control, and on the other soundtrack, you then, if you want to, can hear a running commentary by an expert on the movie. This is the famous scene where King Kong tries to knock those victims off a giant jungle log. And here is Ron Haver explaining the movie's special effects.
Kong, of course, is on a separate piece of film. This is all put together again in the optical printer later on.
Okay, now, say we've heard that explanation, and now we want to take a closer look at the special effects. We can hit the Laser Vision freeze frame button, just like this, and we get a true freeze frame, rock solid. And then we want to take a really close look at the special effects in a movie. We can advance the movie one frame at a time. What we're seeing here is stop-action animation of King Kong projected behind live action of the human actors in the foreground. And then, of course, we can hit another button, and the movie goes back to normal again. The Criterion Collection has similar collector's editions of several other great movies, including the greatest of them all, Citizen Kane. Their Laserdiscs also include a lot of other material in addition to the movies. For example, the original previews of coming attractions for most of the movies. Interviews with the directors of the films. Here's Orson Welles. Page-by-page reproductions of the original screenplays. Original rare publicity photos, some of them collector's items, and a lot of other stuff. This whole collection is a movie buff's fantasy.
Absolutely.
Now, Citizen Kane, which we were just looking at, was done by Robert Carrington, a Wells expert from my alma mater, the University of Illinois. I've seen that movie 25 or 30 times, and I found out a lot of stuff I never knew about it, plus the ability to freeze a frame and advance it one frame at a time to really look at how it's put together.
Well, Roger, when I looked at King Kong, which I've enjoyed, I did not appreciate it as much as I did with its narrator,
Ron Haver.
Ron Haver. He's telling me stuff like, look at how Fay Ray never loses her shoes. Look at how Kong is climbing with both hands. He says, where is Fay Ray in his hand?
Right.
He also says about the destruction of 3rd Avenue L, he says how the director, that's from Cooper, was influenced by the German expressionists, and you see the people falling, and it relates it to movie history. I want to tell you, you know, we've been in movie criticism a long time, but aren't you a little bit humbled by this whole collection? I mean, this is like a whole brand new education.
It was a lot of fun. What you can do is you watch the Criterion Collection, then you bring your friends over and you give them this play-by-play commentary, and they think you're the expert. Coming up next, 2 other Criterion laser discs, including Swing Time with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers.
No one could teach you to dance in a million years.
Continuing our discussion of the Criterion Collection of Laserdiscs, our next film is Swing Time from 1936, starring the incomparable Fred Astaire and his underappreciated partner Ginger Rogers. Now, when we first talked about this Criterion Collection, in order to play these kinds of records, if you will, you've got to get a special machine, a laser vision machine. It costs about as much as a good quality VCR. And the Criterion Collections on these discs gives you 2 audio tracks, the sound of the movie and also another track with a critic's voice explaining what we're seeing on screen. The narrator on Swing Time is John Mueller, and he does a wonderful job reviewing my favorite number in the film, Pick Yourself Up. This is where Fred Astaire first startles dancer instructor Ginger Rogers, because at first he's a bumbler. But then he dazzles her with how quickly he learns how to dance. And now, by pushing a button for the other audio track, we can hear Mueller's commentary on this fabulous dance number.
The arena is no longer big enough for them. They swing over the railing, back again, travel full speed across the floor as the music builds, and moderate to a calm stroll at the doorway.
That's spectacular. And Mueller, the critic narrator, really did make me appreciate the way that number and other numbers in this film help move the story along dramatically. As he explains, they weren't just dance numbers without meaning. I also learned that Fred Astaire did not like kissing on the screen, that he thought it was too easy an expression of affection, that he preferred to kiss with his body in motion. Later in the film, we see Fred Astaire dance for the only time in his career in blackface, and he dances here seemingly with 3 shadows of himself in one of the trickiest dance illusions ever put on film. I won't reveal how the trick was accomplished. I'll let the Criterion Collection do that for you. You know, it's just an example, though, of how dedicated Astaire was to creating these musicals, and also he was working with Hermes Pan, his choreographer. Now, before I saw the Criterion Collection version of Swing Time, I thought I couldn't have any greater respect for Fred Astaire. But now I do.
You know, I did something interesting. I hooked up my VCR and my laser vision machine. I put Swing Time on tape in one machine, Swing Time on disc in the other, and I was able to switch back and forth on my TV.
Right.
It's so much clearer. The sound is so much better on laser vision. There's no comparison.
And what you learn about Astaire, I mean, is just fabulous. I mean, the way he worked.
Yeah, let's look at one more laser disc from Criterion. This is the extraordinary and brand new version of the Magnificent Ambersons, the movie Orson Welles made right after Citizen Kane. Many people think it's one of the best movies of all time, but Welles' original ending, in fact, the last third of the film, was changed by the studio, and so the movie has been known for years as a mutilated masterpiece. Here's the voice of Welles narrating the opening of his film.
The only public conveyance was the streetcar. A lady could whistle to it from an upstairs window, and the car would halt at once and wait for her. While she shut the window, put on her hat and coat, went downstairs, found an umbrella, told the girl what to have for dinner, and came forth from the house.
Later in the film, we get some extraordinary black and white photography. Look, for example, at this long, complex camera movement by Greg Toland. And now this is the voice of Welles expert Robert Carringer describing it.
It begins with this elaborate moving shot backward. Now, of course, those walls and the props have to be precision dropped into place as the camera moves through the path. That's an extremely difficult scene to choreograph. And we pass through the reception hall. We see in the background the circular staircase. And we end up in the front parlor, which is the scene of the action where Isabel waited patiently for Eugene to arrive not knowing that Georgie had already sent him away.
That's Agnes Moorehead and Tim Holt. And, of course, as they walk up to that window in the last shot there, it looks as if it's got bars on the window, as if they're still imprisoned inside the Amberson mansion and the Amberson family. Of course, the original Wells version of Magnificent Ambersons has been lost forever, but what's interesting here is that they show you the storyboard art director sketches of what it would have looked like. They also throw in the Orson Welles radio play of Magnificent Amberson, so you get as close as you can to seeing what kind of a film he originally wanted to make.
It's the best rescue attempt at this lost treasure, and you learn so much more. You learn about how, at one point early in the disc, he explains the cost of the set alone of the 7-room mansion, instead of little tiny sets like they do with most movies, was all a piece, cost 3 times as much as all the sets for Gone with the Wind. This was Wells' attention to detail. It will tell people how important set construction is to making movies. This is a great educational tool. The Criterion Collection on Laserdisc, Laservision. Now let's recap our reactions to the new films on the show that Roger and I reviewed earlier. We split on Francis Coppola's Vietnam drama, Gardens of Stone. I thought James Caan's performance carried the drama successfully. Roger thought the movie didn't have a dramatic payoff. 1 thumb up, 1 down. But we agreed on River's Edge, a haunting, shocking portrait of aimless, drug-abusing kids. 2 thumbs up.
And that's the one that's going to stay with me for a long time, because at one level it's a horror film, on another level it's just a very terrifying slice of life. Good film. That's it for this week. Next week we'll be back with a special show we're calling Guilty Pleasures. Movies that we're almost ashamed to admit that we like. Kind of the opposite of this week. That's next week. And until then, the balcony is closed.